Okay, we are going to paint our Thanksgiving tier tray. The first thing that you need to do is, I suggest just opening up your box all the way so that it protects your work surface, but you're also going to need something to dab your paint off onto, and the box is perfect for that. If you don't want to use it for that, then get an old piece of paper or magazines, whatever you have. Okay, how I paint my tier tray sets is I like to paint them by color. If you want to paint piece by piece, meaning let's say you wanted to paint the whole Thankful, Blessed, Pumpkin Pie Obsessed, then all you would need to do is just get some Ziploc baggies and put your wedges in there so that they don't dry out in between colors. I like to do it color by color. That way I don't really have to worry about that. So how I start is I separate all my pieces into the colors. So you can either pull up the picture from Facebook or just go off of this little instruction sheet that I sent you. So I have over here, this pile is my navy pile. I've got my white, orange, brown, mustard, and then this is black / gray, because in order to make gray, you would just mix a little bit of white into your black. As far as wedge sizes, I sent you 3 large and 3 small. I like to use small wedges for the detailed, the little pieces, simply because, excuse me, it gets less paint on the side. But when there are larger pieces involved, that would be a lot of bouncing and it's really annoying. So that's where the large wedges are. If you did the same colors as me, I did my larger wedges on navy, white, and the mustard color, and then the small wedges on the other. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and start with navy. No rhyme or reason, just because. So if you're new to this, the technique is obviously you would open up your pod. I'm just going to go ahead and use the lid of the paint can. You're going to dab your wedge into the paint, and then on the side of your box, dab the excess off, up and down. That's going to make it so that you can do light, even coats, and it's not going to drip. It's going to give it a much smoother, professional finish versus just globbing the paint right on there. Especially with, well, pretty much with all the colors, but especially if it's like a really light color or a super dark color, you will for sure want to plan on doing at least 2 coats to get full coverage. So you're gonna wanna wait until it dries, but realistically, if you're doing really light coats, this is gonna dry very quickly. So by the time I finish those, for sure, I'll be able to do a second coat right after, but I could probably realistically even do 2 coats on one piece at a time. So as you can see, my first coat is going to be very uneven, very splotchy, and that's okay. Also, these are just a guide for gluing, so it's fine if you get paint in them. Okay, I'm going to do the ring. This is for the Talk Turkey to Me shiplap. See, as you can see, I'm going quickly. I've already painted this, but it's harder to keep the edges clean when I'm using such a big wedge on a small piece. That's why I like to use the smaller wedges, which if you wanted to, you could paint the big piece and then just cut this in half, but that's not necessary. Okay, just so that this video isn't 8 hours long, I am going to push pause and finish painting the navy, and then we'll come back for the next pieces. So I'm going to paint the gobble cut out, the Talk to Me. This is from the Talk Turkey to Me shiplaps round. The larger rectangle from the Oh Snap tag, and then the background of the banner. So I'm going to give that 2 coats, and then we'll come back and go from there. Forgot to mention, on these really little pieces, when you're trying to paint them, you're gonna notice they're just gonna come right up on the wedge like that. So that, if you're new, that is what these tweezers are for. You just pinch and it just kind of holds it down and gives you a little bit of leverage so that when you're painting, it's not, unless you let go with your wedge, it just holds it down, and then you're also not painting all over your fingers. So I only use it on the smaller pieces just because it's like an extra step, and it's kind of unnecessary on the larger pieces, but just an FYI what this tool is for. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the white. Once the navy is done, make sure that you wash your hands, especially when you're going to the white, because it is such a delicate, or it's such a light color that it's easy to transfer paint onto your pieces. So the pieces that I'm doing white are the turkey's eyeballs, which then once they dry, I will move over to the black for the pupils. All the letters for the Thankful, Blessed, Pumpkin Pie, Obsessed. So that's all right there, which I'll use my tweezers to paint those. The Give Thanks, that's for the banner. The background of the Oh Snap tag. The Talk Turkey to Me shiplap. The Little Whipped Cream. Oh, and that was it because I had the other letters. And the Little Whipped Cream thing. So I'm going to do the same technique, except for I'm just going to put my paint right on there. Just 1 second. Okay, I hurried and went and grabbed my toothpick. That is for the shiplap lines. So I will show you. Let's do this one first. So same thing, dip into the white, dab excess off, and then very, very lightly tap up and down. You want to go really light because you don't want to flood your shiplap lines with paint. And so if you're very lightly tapping up and down, you're not going to have a problem with that at all. The Talk Turkey to me doesn't really matter because you're just gluing things on top of that. But since you need to go light anyways, and especially on the lines that are framing the two, and then these lines that are around the me, you want to go so light, because if you get paint in there, you can't really clean it out unless you like put a marker in there and basically just mark over it. Okay, I'm going to show you really quick the shiplap lines. Let's say I'm going to just go extra light over the deep etched lines. But as far as the shiplap lines, if you get a little bit of paint in there, it's totally okay. You just put your toothpick and then you just slide it, and that cleans it right up. Just like that. I didn't really have paint in there, but yet. And so just very, very, very lightly. The biggest tip that I can give is when you first go and fill up your color like this and then dab off, don't go right to those lines. I like to go like in the middle, in between the shiplap, and then move over the lines because you've already bounced most of the excess paint off. So you will more likely not see it. You don't have to go all the way to the edge if you don't want to. I mean, cover the edge as much as you can because this is a pretty skinny circle, but it's okay if it's missing a little bit on the edge. Okay, I'm gonna put that to the side for my second coat once it's dry. And same thing, I'm gonna start like away from these little snap lines and then go over around it. Very, very, very light. And as you can see, it is like super uneven. It's not great coverage, but that's what the second coat is for. As far as these eyes and the rest of the pieces, where is it? This little tiny circle, if you can see that, that's a guide for when you paint your pupil. So same thing, it's okay if you cover it. I mean, if you're going light, you can still see the edge. There's no paint in it whatsoever. But if you did get paint in that, I wouldn't worry about clearing it out with your toothpick because you're just going to paint that black anyways. Okay, so I'm going to do that same technique with all these little letters, and then I'm going to go through and do one more coat, and then we'll come back for the next color. Okay, let's move on to black so I can show you, in case you wanted to follow my picture, how I made gray. So the only two black pieces are the back of the turkey head and then the pupils of his eyes. So I'm going to take a little wedge, dip, dab off the excess, and then just quickly paint this little guy. Okay, and then as far as the pupils, that's where this little grain applicator comes in handy. I'm just gonna dip it, just the tip of it, into the black, and then I'm gonna hold it down with my tweezers. And then I'm just gonna follow that circle to paint it. And same with the other one. Okay. Oops. I'm gonna try not to knock it over and spread paint. Okay, and then the rest of it I did for the black colors, I did gray. So these are from the banner. The reason I didn't do straight black is because I painted my banner this dark navy color and was afraid the black, it just wouldn't show up as well. So the three steam lines from the pie, and then on the cart banner, the one with the pumpkin, I painted the really thin line and the tires gray. So I just used the back of this applicator, and you're obviously gonna scoop yours from, or like pour a little bit out from your pot, but mine is directly on my paper. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of black and mix it with the white. I might need to get more paint. And you won't need much at all. Okay, and so then I just used the corner of my black wedge when I did it, or you can use this side if you prefer, so that you're not cross contaminating. And so then I'm going to hold it down and just bounce up and down. And you can obviously do different colors if you prefer versus doing the gray. The biggest thing is to make sure that you mix enough for the tires so that they match. I'm gonna have to repaint mine because I dipped my thumb in the black paint and got paint on my tires. So I will repaint my tires. So when you do that, I'm just gonna quickly show you the orange because I kind of did the same thing with the orange. So, and then I'll let you finish painting. The rectangle for the Oh Snap tag, the turkey for the Talk Turkey to Me, the pumpkin pie inserts for that Thankful, Grateful, Pumpkin, or Thankful, Blessed, Pumpkin Pie Obsessed. And then the turkey's waddle. And that's it. Those ones I painted directly orange, the exact same orange color that it came with. I didn't dilute it at all. And then for the beak, this pumpkin and this pumpkin, I added a little, out on your box, I added a little bit of white to it, just so that it gave it, especially with the beak, because I didn't want the waddle and the beak to completely blend in. So I just added a little bit of white and then painted those. So if you're gonna do that, I would do 2 coats of the straight orange until those are completely done. Then add a little bit of white out onto your box to the orange and paint these 3 pieces. And that will just give it a little bit more dimension. So I'm gonna do that. And then what else? I'm trying to think if there's something else that I need to guide through. The gold or the mustard color is very straightforward. You're going to use the same techniques for that. And then the brown is straightforward as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and push pause and finish painting. I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but just in case I didn't, the cutting board, the wishbone, and the top of the pie, I did not do anything to. I left them the maple color. So if you wanted to paint them, then you can go ahead and do that. So I'm going to finish painting and then we'll come back when it's time for assembly. I figured I better hurry and show you just in case I'm not very good at explaining things. So I painted these ones, the straight orange, and then I'm going to go ahead and pour, come on, some orange out, and then I would have my pod, and then I'm going to pour out a little white. You want to mix not as much as I put down, because you want to mix a little bit at a time until you get the color that you're happy with. So I'm going to use the same wedge that I was using. That's why I was saying do your 2 coats and completely finish painting these pieces orange. That way, when I mess up this wedge, I don't have to worry about rinsing it out and everything like that. So I'm just going to only take a little bit of that white over, and I am just going to dab it and mix it all over. And then I see that that's not super light. It's not very much of a difference. So I'll add a little bit more white, and that's more the color that I'm going for. So I'm going to go ahead and dab up and down on the side. I'm going to dab it pretty hard just to help mix the color together so it's not all speckly. And then I'm going to do the beak. Actually, there we go. Just going to almost paint at the back of it. And so then you can see, I don't know if you can tell actually. Can you tell that those are 2 different colors? My dirty hands. Oops. Can you see the difference? And then if you're still not happy with it, you want it to be lighter, then you can go ahead and mix more white, and that's totally fine. I'm just gonna go really light up and down on these pumpkins so that I don't get anything in the lines. And then same thing with this one. Really light up and down. The only thing that you really need to worry about is making sure that you mix enough, because let's say I ran out of this color and I needed to do a second coat. Basically what you would need to understand is that it would not match perfectly. There's no way. So you would just need to make sure that you paint it evenly. Again, you couldn't just touch up spots, if that makes sense. Just gonna go light up and down, up and down. Make sure I got everything. It's kind of an overcast day today, so my lighting isn't as good as it usually is in this room. Oops. I keep doing that with this piece. Okay, so now I'm gonna go and finish everything and then come back. So all I've got is my brown and my mustard color left. So I'm gonna finish that, and then when we come back, it will be time to glue everything together. Oh, no, it won't be. It will be time to make our tassel, and then we'll glue everything together. Okay, once everything is painted, it's time to start putting everything together. Make sure that you wash your hands so that you don't transfer any paint onto your freshly painted pieces. So let's go ahead and do our banner first. So I'm going to go ahead and also, if you have like wet paint still on your box, I would move all of that. I'm not gonna worry about mine, but if I was you, I would move that. So we have 5 banner pieces. Let's start with the easiest, this pumpkin. So a little bit of super glue goes a very long way, so you don't need that much. So go ahead and just do like a little circle in there, and then just line it up as best you can and press it down. And then make sure that you have your stem, that you painted the correct side of your stem so that it goes like that. So with these little pieces, what I like to do is off to the side so that you don't set any pieces in there. I like to just pour a little bit of super glue onto the side, dab the tiny piece in, dab the excess off, and then place. And then press down for a little bit. And then that one is done. And then let's go to the pie. On almost every single one of these pieces, I'm going to highly suggest you lay it out before you glue it, because you want to make sure that you have room. So for instance, the steam, you want to make sure that the longest piece is not going to be going over the top, if that makes sense. These little steam pieces are actually pretty annoying. I kind of regretted doing that. So add it or don't, it's up to you. Okay, I'm gonna do mine right there. So I'm gonna do the bottom piece first. And I'm just going to do a really thin line straight across. And then I'm just gonna line that up and make sure that it's somewhat straight. Oh, as it just moved on me a little bit. That's okay, it wasn't much. Okay, and then the pie head, crust, whatever, I'm going to lay down right there. Okay, now same thing. I'm gonna put a little bit of super glue there, and then I'm gonna go with the biggest one first. Dab off the extra and set that down. And then the next steam pile, dab off the extra. The next one, I'm going to try to get it somewhat evenly spaced. Okay, so we finished that one, and then let's go with this Give Thanks. I'm going to top off my super glue, and this one I gave you some etching on the back to follow to try to help keep it straight. So we'll do that, and then the thanks. You don't have to get it on every single letter by any means. And then these letters will have a little bit of wiggle room, so stretch them out gently. Oh my gosh, see when I said don't put your hand in the wet paint, because I just did. but that's okay. It was just a little bit. Okay, so let's do the pumpkin card next. Same thing, I'm going to lay it out so that I know. I will never take out the bloopers, just so you guys know, because I feel like sometimes crafting is messy, especially if you're a lazy craft like me and you don't clean up right after. So it's okay. Nothing is permanent, because then I can just add a little bit of white to touch that one up. Okay, I'm going to do the cart first, actually. Do a line, and then I'm going to go ahead and just make it as straight as I can. And then we'll do, I'm just going to dip it. Try to get as little super glue on my fingers as possible. It's the season for colds. I'm trying not to sniff. My nose is a little runny and I hate it. I love this time of year, but I hate this time of year. Okay, I didn't even look up to see if I'm even on camera, so hopefully you've been able to see. Okay, and then we have our turkey next. Move his eyeballs and all the other pieces. Okay. Let's do it. Come on. Just do a little swirly there, and then just try to keep it even. Not even, but straight up and down. Okay. Let that dry a little bit. Bigger pieces take just a couple seconds more. And then this one is easy because you just have to line it up with the outline. And then for the eyes, I'm literally just going to go ahead and drop some super glue right in there instead of worrying about putting super glue on these eyeballs because they're so little. And then I'm just going to let them sit in there and dry. And let's do our beak. And then before, the reason I like to set everything out, number one, it's for spacing, but also if you find out that you painted the wrong side, because guess what I did? I painted the wrong side of my wattle. And when I was setting it out, I realized, and so I was able to go back and paint the correct one. Okay, and then our little turkey is done. So then I sent a 3-foot long piece of twine inside your bag with your banner. And so you can go ahead and string that however you like. So I had mine show on the front. If you don't want to see that, then instead of, I went from back, up, and down, back, up, and down. So if you didn't want to see your twine, you would just go in the front, around the back, and up. Does that make sense? And then the 3 feet should be plenty for you. And so I suggest tying it around your tier tray. And then if you have anything extra, then I cut off a little bit and I just wrapped it around my cutting board. Just a little decoration, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Okay, let's go to this shiplap circle. Talk turkey to me. Okay, I'm going to just be as careful as I can when I go around. I basically touch the head of the glue to the wood, and I don't do it over that so that I don't spill. And I am barely barely squeezing, so it actually doesn't even look like hardly anything is coming out. It's basically just using the excess. Oh, except for right there. The very end, I got some on my finger. And then I just line up, pick one edge to start with, and then go around and just make sure that it's along the edges of your circle, which I probably wasn't even on camera when I did that. So I can feel that it's all even. Everything feels good. And then I'm gonna hold it down just in case there's any warping at all. Okay, and I'm gonna move these pieces. And then just start with some super glue on the side. Dip, 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 dip. Dip off the excess. And then match it up with the etching so that you can't see that. Okay. And then the two, this is so little that I definitely suggest doing the dip method for that one, or else you will for sure glue your fingers. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of a dot. And just make it as even as you can. And then I'm going to set that up there to dry. Okay, let's go with the gobble next, because it will be quick and easy. With this, sorry, I have super glue on my fingers and it's bugging me. So you don't need to get every single piece. So I'm going to move my yellow away. If yours is like super warped, then you'll want to glue most of the edge. But if it's not, then you can just go ahead and hit the corners if you want. I'm just going to do like I did with the circle. I'm just going to barely squeeze at all, so hardly any is coming out. And then I'm just going to hit a couple pieces here. And then same thing, start with one corner, match that up, and then just make sure the rest of it, the edges are all lined up, and then hold down for a few seconds. Okay, set that off to the side. Let's go with this one. Okay, I'm going to do my frame first. Drag your tip with hardly any super glue coming out at all, so that it's not squirting everywhere. And then make sure, sorry, it's hard to make sure that it's straight and be on camera all at the same time. Hold that down. Okay, we're good there. Now on this piece, I highly suggest, require you to put the letters down before you glue them, because there's a lot of repeat letters. And so you might think, like for instance, blessed, E-S-S-E-D, obsessed has E-S-S-E-D. There's a lot of P's for pumpkin pie. So you may think like, oh, I have a P, and you might pick it up and glue it down. And then you're like, oh no, that was actually for somewhere else. So you need to lay everything out, make sure that it matches where it needs to be before you glue things down. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to cut some wood apart so that your pieces fit. So let's see, blessed, B-L-S-S-E-D. Pumpkin. And guess what I did? I painted the wrong side of the N. So I'm going to need to paint that before I glue, because I painted the wrong side of my whipped cream too, I think, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm going to do my letters before I do my pumpkin pie. So I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze some super glue onto the side and then pick up the letters and go from there. And then make sure that it's covering all the edges. If I'm going too fast, then I hope that you're pausing this, or if you can't see, because I'm not even looking at my phone at all. So if you can't see and I missed a spot, because I'm not gonna go back and watch this. So if there's a piece that you couldn't see and it doesn't make sense, then just reach out to me and I will further explain or do a better video. Okay. On some of these, I tried to combine the letters as much as I could, but like if I combined the M with the U, it would have taken away the whole side of the U and it looked really dumb. So I did what I could to make it as least annoying as possible. Okay, I'm not doing my N until I paint that. Technically, I could paint it once it's glued down, but I don't want to. One more word. Oh no. There we go. It's a little uneven there for a second. Sometimes super glue can be forgiving and you have a second to move it, and sometimes once you set it down it says this is where I live forever. Okay, I'm going to glue my crust down first just to give me like a frame for the pie. So try to put it where it looks even, and I'm going to leave those pieces there so that I have like a guideline, because I was happy with where that was. And then I'm just going to do that off, and then my head in the way. There we go. Just put my arm in black paint. And then just one line. I like these bigger pieces. They're easier. Oh, there we go. Make sure that you're gluing the right side of the pie, because that will be a little bit harder to fix if you put super glue on it. And then the whipped cream can really go anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and put mine right there. Okay, so that one is done except for the N that I'm going to go and paint. I need to press pause really quickly. Okay, I just went and got a baby wipe so I could wash off my hands and set it down in this wet paint that I keep putting my arm in. Okay, so set your stuff down where you want it to be. We're gonna do our O snap tag, and then add a little super glue. I'm gonna do my wishbone first. Cover that edge so you don't see that. Do you guys like the guideline, the etches that I do to help, or would you rather have like more creative freedom to put wherever you want? Because when I do the etch, if you don't want them there, then it's too bad because you kind of have to. I try to do, because I think if it was me, I would want the etch because I would rather make sure that things are placed straight than worry about that. So I will do the majority. If you want to reach out to me and let me know, if you prefer no etch, then let me know, and then I can do a poll to see what most people prefer. Okay, glued my finger together. Okay, then I'm going to do the bottom one first because I'm just basically gonna line it up. I'm not touching the bottom of the tag, but I'm using the bottom of a tag as a guide to make it straight, if that makes sense. And then even it on both sides. Okay, and then this little one. Okay, now I need to pause one more time because that was our last piece. So I'm gonna pause one more time while I cut some twine really quickly, and I can show you how to make the tag for this piece, or the twine, or oh my gosh, the tassel. Let's make our tassel. So with your tag, sorry, I'm getting text. With your tag in that bag, you had 3 pieces of twine. There's a really long piece, and then there is a middle piece and a smaller piece. For the tassel, you need the smallest and the biggest. So let's start with the biggest. It's 6 feet long. So how I make mine is I just put my hand like this, and I take one end of the twine and I just match it to the bottom of my palm. Does that make sense? And then I'm just going to twist like so. Oops. Okay, and so mine ended up here, and that's okay. You can just let that dangle down because you'll just cut that excess off. So then I'm going to carefully slide it off so that it's just a continuous loop, and then get that smallest piece like I said, and I'm going to leave about that long of a piece out so I have something to tie, and just really tightly I'm going to wrap it around. So you're going to have a bigger piece loop down here and a smaller loop up here. So I'm going to tie this. I personally don't tie mine in a knot. You can. There are 2 things you can do. You can tie yours in a complete knot, or for me, what I do is I only tie it one time And then I'm going to show you how I make it permanent. I did this last time. I didn't bring a pencil over here. Let me clean off this applicator that's covered in paint right now. So before I make it permanent, you need to be able to have like an eye that goes through this top little loop, because we're going to string our beads, well, not beads through it, but we're going to put a string through it. So since I can't see it right now, I'm going to carefully try to get all of the pieces, have a pencil go through it or your applicator, and just kind of wiggle it till they're even, because some of them won't be an even loop. So just basically make a circle. So now I can see a hole all the way through. So since that is good, I'm going to tighten this piece that I wrapped around, and I'm going to get a little tiny dab of super glue. I'm going to put it right onto that tie part. I don't know what I would call that. And I'm going to let that dry. And then I'm going to cut off the excess. Make sure it's completely dry before you do this, or else you'll get super glue on your scissors. I don't care. These are crafting scissors. But I don't want you coming at me about ruining your scissors. So you make sure yours are dry. Do as I say, not as I do. Then you're going to take your scissors, and on this bottom loop, you're just going to cut through. And then I'm going to fan my tassel out like this, and then just trim up the bottom a bit. There's going to be a couple pieces that are probably really big, and then the rest of them are just going to need a little trim. And that's your tassel. That was it. So as far as making the string for the beads, sorry, I have super glue on my fingers and I have a really hard time moving on from that. Drives me crazy. So you're going to take one end of this medium string, it's 1.5 feet, and you're going to thread it through that eye and tie a knot. And I actually tie a knot on this. Okay. So you'll have a little bit of extra. So you can just, well, there's two things you can do. You can cut the extra off. Can you see it right there? That little hair piece. Or let me show you. Oh, here's my beads. Okay, I'm not going to string all of them because I don't want to go downstairs and get my new bag of beads because I just ran out. So what you need is you need to push pause and go get a little piece of tape, either masking tape or painter's tape. It really doesn't matter, but this will make your life way easier. And you just need like the tiniest piece. And you're going to wrap it around the end of, so here's your tassel, this end, because as you string your beads, it's gonna fray the thread and you're gonna get really angry. Just me? Okay. It's called rage crafting. So this will prevent that. Okay, so once you do that, then you just get your beads and you start threading. So remember this little hair that I said you could cut off, or all you need to do is just tuck it up inside that first bead. That's it. And then you just continue to thread. My goodness. Oh, it's because this one has a little bit of extra wood. They didn't drill this bead very well. If that happens, if you just get like a pencil and just kind of clear it out, that helps. Okay, pretend that's 10 beads. It's almost. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put this through our tag, and you're going to want to tie this as close to your beads as possible. Otherwise, you're going to have like a really long gap, and you're not going to want that. So what I do is let me push this down. I purposely keep a gap, and then I keep dropping my thread in super glue just for this initial wrap around. Okay, so then I've just made this loop right here. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do this clearly. And then as I'm tightening, I move my tag closer and closer to the bead. So this might take you a couple times to really get it tight. So I'm tightening this end while also moving my tag towards the bead. I'm sure there's a much easier way. I just don't know that way. So then by the time you're done with that, you should have a really close. So mine is pretty darn close if you slowly work your way up. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to do it on this one, but you can either tie another knot, or I just put a drop of super glue on that to hold it in place. Then you can either cut, yours won't be this long, but you can either cut that, or my dog is barking and I'm so distracted because I want to go yell at him. I do not like it when dogs bark. Or you can thread it up through your beads just to give it like a little bit of extra support. I would probably only do it like through a couple, unless you are pretty patient. Because that one is that the one that had the extra wood? That's where our tweezers are going to come in handy. There we go. Am I even on camera? No? My sister is probably the only one who watches this, so this is fine. She'll call me if she has questions. Okay, so then once I get to like that part, I would just go ahead and cut that off because you don't need to go all the way through. And there you have your tag. And so after that, every piece is done. And if you have any questions, please reach out.